different. The events that happened 2 days ago in Utah, I think are very significant. And I think we can just start by having a moment of silence for Charlie Kirk and his family. We can just remember him and pray for him for a moment. Okay, thank you. So St. Thomas, I looked online and I checked, and your mission is to promote dialogue between faith and reason. And I'm not sure if there's anyone else in the country who could do that quite as well as Charlie. He would go into the enemy's den. He would go to these college campuses where he was under verbal attack. And he would make courageous and bold arguments that people did not want to hear. And if you listen to him, he infused faith and reason in almost every sentence that left his mouth. We will miss him dearly. But I think it's important to sort of think about why it was so important that Charlie did what he did. We have a First Amendment. We have the freedom of speech. But unless people are willing to speak, it doesn't go very far. And in recent years, the climate, especially in college campuses, has not been favorable to speech. The climate has been indeed hostile to speech. People have had their views canceled, censored. People have been fired from their jobs. They've lost their friends, all because they disagree with the certain orthodoxy of the day. I think we should all take inspiration from Charlie and be our own St. Jude and to fight for what's unpopular and to pursue causes that promote the common good. So again, I was going to talk about the Supreme Court and the emergency docket, but that just feels so last week. So I emailed Chris about 2 hours and said, hey Chris, I'm changing the topic, congratulations. So I want to actually talk about something personal to me, which is an experience I had in 2018, so almost 7 years ago, but it still reminds me a lot. It happened at the CUNY Law School, that's City University of New York, it's in Queens, and I was invited. The law school's federal side chapter invited me to come speak to campus. The topic we picked was free speech. Okay, so I was invited to a law school to talk about free speech. I had given this topic many times before at different schools. It always went well. This wasn't ideological, right? I wasn't talking about abortion or gay marriage or guns. I was talking about the importance of free speech on campus. That was my topic. All right, so I didn't give much thought to it. Back then I did maybe 50 of these events a year. Now I do maybe 30. I have kids now. But I used to do about 50 of these events a year. And a few days before the event, the president of the federal chapter emails me. He says, let me just read to you. He says, we passed out flyers today. Okay. And a large number of students are up in arms about the event. Up in arms? Me? The Office of Student Affairs said that, quote, some enraged students apparently are planning to protest. Protest? Free speech? So I asked them, what's going on? And he replied, the students saw that you are a federal side member, and they saw some of your writings, things I've written. For example, I've written about DACA, and I wrote that I think DACA was unlawful. It was a policy that might be a good policy, but it was not with that authority. And they, quote, assume that you're racist. They just assume. They know nothing about me, but they assume I'm a racist. By the way, being called racist is like the way to shut you up. I've been called racist so many times, I don't even think about it anymore. It doesn't matter. It's a meaningless charge. Because once they say that, they have no actual reason, nothing to say to you. And third, they said that this event's about free speech, and that I'm just like Ann Coulter or Milo Yiannopoulos, if you know who that is. Okay. So I start getting a little nervous, and I say, are we going forward with this? He's like, yes, we have the support of the administration. We will proceed. I was like, all right. So I get on the plane, and I fly to New York. So I get there, and a few hours before the event begins, the dean, her name is Mary Lou Bielek, who's not there anymore, she sends an email to the students. And she says, as a public institution, to government school, we are committed to academic freedom, the free exchange of ideas, and the expression of all points of views, including the freedom to disagree with viewpoints of others. Again, this is a public school. They're bound by the First Amendment. Not here. You guys are private. Do whatever the heck you want. CUNY, Public School First Amendment. University policy provides guidelines for how to express disagreement lawfully, including through demonstrations, defines prohibited conduct, and details the procedures for handling disruptive demonstrations at CUNY facilities. Okay. We attach a copy of the policy, blah, 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 and then she includes the policy. Okay. So how do you think the students react to that? They thought, yes, we will protect free speech. No. They got mad at the dean for standing up for free speech. So a member of the community students tweeted, only at the nation's premier public interest law school does a dean send an email that CUNY limits on protest shortly before a conservative student organization, Federal Society, sends a reminder about this vile speaker. Vile. I'm vile. Josh Blackman. She actually wrote Justin Blackman. I'll give her a pass. It's close enough. Justin Blackman. Close enough. Get the J. Okay. So then I get to the campus, and I'm sitting in an office upstairs, and I start hearing all these rumblings. Oh boy, what's going on? And a campus security officer walks over to me. Thank you, sir, for protecting us. I appreciate it. We got to keep us safe. Okay. So a campus security officer walks over to us. He's their chief of public safety. Okay, that sounds important. Okay, he's not in uniform. He does not want to be seen. He's in plain clothes. This guy, uniform, badge, right? This guy was not uniform. And he told me that a few dozen students were already assembled in the hallway outside the room. Oh, wow. You know, if I go to law school and 20 people show up, I'm happy. There were dozens of people. Do this count my numbers? Right. There were dozens of people congregating in the hallway outside the room. They had amassed earlier in the day to make posters and signs. I swear, it's arts and crafts time. They actually passed out poster board and markers. I don't know if they were even law students. I never found out. I'm sure they were undergrads or people just off the street, who knows, right? But they passed around materials to make posters against me. So I asked the security officer, I said, are they going to heckle me? And he said, I don't know. Well, I knew. I wasn't getting much confidence from this guy. He basically said, here's what's happening. You're on your own. I'm like, okay. So then he asked me, I'll never forget it, what is my exit plan? My exit plan? What do you mean my exit plan? He said, how do you plan to safely leave the building? He wasn't giving me any tips, like, how do you get out of here if something bad happens? I said, I'll take an Uber. He's like, okay, good. You should not be taking the subway. I'm like, oh. I would never take the subway anyway, but definitely not at that stop. He was relieved. Okay, Uber, that's good. You'll get out of here safely. I had never considered this question before. I asked him, will you be in the room? And he said, no. Oh. So I said, let me get this straight. You're not going to come with me. You're not going to do anything for me. He's like, yeah, no. But eventually, he decided to escort me to the classroom. So I want to just have a video. Can you just switch to the YouTube, please, sir? And the video's an hour long. I'm not going to play a small chunk of it. What you're going to see here, this is actually my POV for you youngsters, right? This is my point of view. Grandma, you know what a POV is, Grandma? No. Point of view. No. This is a POV of me walking through this onslaught. And there's like 4 people inside. All right, so just cut the audio. Keep letting it play. Just cut the audio. Yeah. So, yeah, just let it play, but just the audio off, please. Yeah, just let it play, but unmute. Okay, thank you. Right, so then they all came in, and they surround all four corners of the room. Again, there were like 4 people actually sitting in attendance to watch. And they all come in, and they're surrounding the room. And there's me. I used to have short hair. I used to look much more like a lawyer, right? And they're all sitting up there right over my shoulder. And, you know, I'll just to demonstrate, right? Like, I'm here, they're like right behind me. They're right behind me. And I was a little confused. So the guy talking there, oh, did you turn the audio back on? Second. So that's the president of the chapter, and he's trying to get them to leave. Let's go on to a thing. They are standing right over my shoulder. Okay, you can turn the audio off. That's good. Okay. And you can pause it too. That's good enough for now. So, you know, it went by quick. Boy, are they chanting, "Shame on you. Shame on me." I don't understand how CUNY allows this. There are students that are directly affected by this hate speech. That's me, hate speech. Favorite one. Legal objectivity is a myth. Can you imagine a Catholic institution to say that? Legal objectivity is a myth. That's not what we teach here, is it? No, you guys teach the opposite, right? That there is some objective truths in the world, huh?
Yes.
Yeah, even the Jew knows that, right? So, and one guy said, "You still have an opportunity to leave." That sounds like a threat. I don't know. What do you think? You have an opportunity. You still have an opportunity to leave. Yeah. Wow. The president introduces me, and the protesters start heckling the president. So this poor student, you know, I give him credit. He was not getting paid for this. He didn't have to do any of this stuff, but he was committed to this event, and I give him credit. And as he introduces me, he says my biography. They say, "This is not okay." And then someone calls out, "He's a white supremacist." Me, a white supremacist. I was called a Nazi. I was called a fascist. I mean, what's remarkable is my grandparents were Holocaust survivors. If I could explain to them one day your grandson will be called a Nazi, they could not comprehend what that even means. Can we go back to the other tab with some of the signs? I would just scroll through some of the signs and point them out. They're kind of, the first tab. Yeah, just scroll down. I'll tell you what to stop. Yeah, I would have done this better. I had the idea like 2 hours ago. Yes, it was Justin Blackman, yeah. Okay, keep going. Okay, so read that sign. It says, "Josh Blackman's not welcome here." The First Amendment is a weak shield for white supremacy. The First Amendment is a weak shield for white supremacy. The Federal Society is a white supremacist organization. You're getting the pattern. Okay, let's scroll down a bit, please. I'm white and afraid of everything. Okay, I guess that's me. Keep going. A little bit more. Keep going. Okay, stop. This one says constitutional originalism. Constitutional originalism equals white supremacy. Okay, keep going. All right. Does that look okay? Okay, go back up here. Yeah. Pronouns matter. Josh Blackman does not. Pronouns matter. Josh Blackman does not. Okay. Your Koch-funded bullshit opinions are boring and bad. We reject the myth of legal objectivity. Okay. The First Amendment is not a license to dehumanize marginalized people. I don't even know what that even means. All right, keep going down. Okay, yeah, the First Amendment is not a license to dehumanize marginalized people. Anti-DACA, not welcome. Keep going down. Oh, this sign I can't read. Oh, I can't read what you wrote. Come on, protesters, big letters for signs. That's the number one rule. The Federal Society was founded to uphold white supremacy. Good to know for Justice Thomas's sake. All right, keep going. Go down. Okay. That's like this guy. This guy. Oppressors are not welcome here. So I'm an oppressor. I don't know if you knew that. I'm an oppressor. If you feel oppressed right now, you can leave. The door's right there. All right, keep going down. Federal Society is racist, Josh Blackman is racist. My existence is greater than your opinions. I guess that's logic, right? It's greater than a lesson. Just some yeah, I guess, okay. Not really equal. Okay, go down. CUNY, you said DACA students are welcome here. Where is the protection? Where is the safety? Where's my protection? They got the guy hiding in the back. Okay, go down. They keep going. Rule of law equals white supremacy. Got it. Okay, keep going. You're not welcome here. Okay, got it. Free speech is not an issue of white supremacy. Oh God, they gotta be more creative. This girl, yeah. Shame on CUNY. Don't give oppressors a platform. Restoring the rule of law equals white supremacy. Okay. I think we're almost done. Keep going. Oh, yeah, this one's funny. CUNY law, you failed your students, past, present, and future. My goodness. Again, topic. Importance of free speech on campus. You failed your students. What are they learning? All right, keep going. Almost done. No racism, no transphobia, no xenophobia, no ableism, no ageism. Go home, Josh Blackman. Did somebody go home? Now, ironically, I'm from New York. That was actually my home. I was actually visiting my parents. I was there for Passover. That's why I was there. So, all right, I guess I did. Josh Blackman's not welcome here. All right, keep going. Yeah. The people were tweeting about this in National Lawyers Guild. They're really proud about their signs. Keep going, go. Not welcome, not welcome, not welcome. Keep going down. Black Lives Matter. Not one more. ICE out of. These guys were against ICE, a long time ago. That's good. Antifa. I forgot about Antifa. All right, got the 3-color emoji. My free speech is fuck you, white supremacist. Good for you, Rudy Duff. I'm sorry. Okay. So there's one guy, if you notice, who kind of blocked my entry to the room. That's called a battery. He kind of put his backpack in front of me, kind of like bumped me, so I couldn't enter the room. I didn't file a criminal complaint. I probably could have. New York was nullified. They would not have convicted him. All right, keep going down. No platform for fascists. If you have a walk of shame, like going through the pearly gates is the opposite, right? Keep going. Oh, this is my favorite sign. Oh, I love this sign. Keep going. Your legal analysis is lazy and wrong. Go down more. That one. I actually kept that sign. I love that. I have all the signs, by the way, because they litter. So I took all the signs. But Chris, maybe they're right. I don't know. All right, go down more. And this is a guy, conservative hate does not equal intellectual debate. So he's blocking the door. And I kind of like shut me out of the way. So, anyway, keep going. I think I'm done. All right, that's it. That's good for now. All right. So, ask yourself. Some of your students, you're 18, 19, 20 years old. Would you ever do this? Is there some idea that you believe in strongly enough so that you would walk through this gauntlet of yelling and taunts and signs calling you a fascist and a racist and a monster? I hadn't really considered it before I had this happen. I knew I was going to protest at some point. I didn't know when. But would you do this? Right? Would you subject yourself to this, or would you take the path of least resistance and just say, yeah, I'll stay home. I'll watch Netflix, right? K-pop Demon Hunter, right? My kids love that movie. I don't understand it. Right. Would you do this? And if we take a lesson from Charlie Kirk, I think the answer is we should double down and resolve ourselves to be willing to do this. Now, I'll say something you might be surprised by. They are exercising their First Amendment rights, except for the jerk who pushed me. That's not speech. They are exercising their rights, and they have every right to do this. If they don't like what I have to say, they can make me feel uncomfortable. That's part of the game. I come to your campus. I'm going to say something to make you uncomfortable. You can do the same to me. Now, that's a hallway, which is not quite a public space, but it's a limited form, right? Everyone can walk down the hallway. The analysis changes, though, once they go inside the classroom. Why? I was invited to give a lecture on a topic, which I never gave, by the way. The disruption in the classroom is different. So again, I'm fine. Maybe fine's the wrong word. They have the right to protest me, to yell at me, to make me feel uncomfortable, right? That's their right. But in a classroom, right, in extracurricular activity, you're all here. If one of you starts shouting, black and go home, you're a racist, I think my good friend in the back might escort you out, right? If you're Professor Wolf's class and start shouting, you're a racist, he calls security and they escort you out. There are different rules of free speech depending on the forum, right? A classroom is not the sidewalk. This is not your space. This is my space. This is mine right now. This is my podium. I'm speaking, not you. All right, so the event went on. So I tried to start speaking, and I realized, all right, Josh, I had like a 30-minute lecture on free speech. Like, you're not giving the speech today. So I decided to throw it out the window. I said, all right, I'm going to improvise. I didn't know what I was going to do. I had no idea. And by the way, these, can you just scroll down this tab a little bit just to see where people are? Yeah. Keep going. Yeah. So one more? Yeah. Right. Good. Stop right there. So she's like 2 feet away from me. And at some level, I did fear for my safety. I mean, these were pacifist, socialist, Marxists, like probably the Mamdani campaign right now. They were not going to hurt me. I didn't actually think they would hurt me unless something happened and they started to mob and rush, and then I'd be vulnerable. You can't see it here. My mom saw it. Moms always see it, right, Clarice? Moms always see it. My hand was actually trembling. If you watch the video, my hand's trembling. My mom, after, she said, "You're never speaking anywhere ever again." Sorry, Clarice, I didn't listen to my mom. I still do this. I'm a blessed memory. I love her very much. But this is what I do is too important. So I begin to say, "Thank you very much for having me," I said. And they said, "We're not having you." Okay. They said, "You are not welcome." Another said something about white men and those support white supremacy. They're obsessed with white supremacy. Everything is white supremacy, right? But then something interesting happened. There was actually one African-American student in the classroom who said, "I'm not white. He was there to watch me." The sign said, "Josh Blackman's not welcome here, and neither is a FedSoc." And he said, "Why are you here? Why aren't you with us?" In other words, there was a black guy in the room who said, "I'm here for Josh." He said, "Why aren't you protesting with us?" They were shaming an African-American student who didn't want to join their protest. Wow. Wow. So then a member of the students, the group that invited me, said, "You can't interrupt me." Yeah, right. A member of the CUNY administration, who I'd never met before, never met since, walks in. And she says, "All right, everyone, listen. Everybody stop. Let me tell you something. The university rules are people get to speak. You may protest, but you may not keep anyone from speaking. If you do, I have other things to do, but I'll be back. Or you can resolve this yourselves. Or get me to resolve it." That was it. She never had spoken before or after. So then she starts to walk away, and the student says, but the student interrupts her. "Why are you bringing racists into your school? Can you answer that? Why are you not providing support for students affected by this hate speech?" The administrator replied, "Did you hear me?" The student replied, "We are not children. You can't talk to us like that." Yeah, they are, right? It's like my daughter says, "Daddy, I'm not a baby anymore." Okay, right? So the administrator basically walked out. She didn't say anything to me or anything else. She said, "I'll be back." She never came back. She left me by myself. There was a plainclothes security guy in the back. He didn't lift a finger. Josh was on his own. Okay? So then a professor in the back, a common law professor, was with the protesters. The professors are protesting me. It's like the inmates around the asylum. And he goes, "Please don't take the bait." In other words, they think I'm baiting them. And the student goes, "He's threatening us." Oh man, I felt pretty threatened. Right, I'm 1 against 70, and I'm threatening them. The math skills maybe aren't that great there either, right? And then they start saying, "Can we punish me?" Right? So we're about 3 minutes in. I imagine, let's say a single sentence. I said, "Thank you for having me." That's all I said. So I said, screw this. Let me start and let me try to address what they're saying about me. I said, let's make this like a teaching moment, if you will. So I say, "For those who are actually here to hear me speak, I'll try." And they scream out, "Nah." Like, nah, nah, nah. Right. They go, "Nah." So I say, "When I came to this campus, there was a sign that said, 'Oppressors are not welcome,' and I hold up the sign. A student shouted, "You're the oppressor." Say, okay. And then I continue. It says, at the bottom of the paper, by the way, they put out pamphlets about me, put in all the student mailboxes with all these things I said on YouTube and Twitter. They basically made opposition research, all these things I'd said. They did homework, right? I actually think they had outside help. I think there are actually files on me by left-wing groups that they had to kind of tapped. I'm fairly confident, actually. One day, you'll see it comes out. But the little piece of paper said, we reject the idea that his views, that's my views, merit space on this campus. And this comes a key one. You love this one, Chris. We reject the myth of legal objectivity. These are law students. We reject the myth of legal objectivity. The law has to be objective. If the law is subjective, what are we doing? We just rule by fiat. And then the pamphlet continues, Josh Blackman is not welcome at CUNY Law. And I say, congratulations, made me feel unwelcome. A little bit of humor. But I said, I'm still going to say what I'd like to say. They're not shutting me up. So a student interrupts me and says, you're very brave. I told you, thank you, I try. They continue to shout, CUNY Law is threatening us and protecting speakers. God forbid they protect speakers. That's what the First Amendment's about, protecting speech. So I say, I want to make a legal argument. And they let them laugh and get out of their system. And I said, you wrote, violence exists in the law, and it is a myth that law is inherently neutral. You all claim, not you all, but the students there claim that legal objectivity is a myth. So let me talk about legal objectivity for a few minutes. Okay? And they start talking about the law and DACA and different things. And then I'm saying, you know what? If you don't like the law, you can change the law. So this student shouts out, can I use a four-letter word here? Can I curse?
I think we already have it, so yeah.
So the student shouts out, I swear to you, fuck the law. Sorry. How many Hail Marys is that one, right? Fuck the law, the student said. This stunned me. These are law students who are about to take the bar exam and become members of the bar and then become the general counsel for the Mamdani campaign, right? These are students who are going on to positions of power. So I say, fuck the law? That's a very odd thing. You're all in law school. And it is a bizarre thing to say, fuck the law when you're in law school. And they start shouting over me as if I'm the crazy one here. Then a student yelled at me and said, you chose CUNY, didn't you? You know what happened here. And this is actually kind of interesting. I didn't quite get what she was saying. She thought I came there to be protested, that I wanted to be protested, that I wanted to create some sort of disruption and anger them to get attention and go on Fox News. I actually did go on Fox News after this, but that's not why I went there, right? I went there because it's what I do. I went there because I believe in speech. That's what I meant by don't take the bait. But this heckler sort of made my point. She recognized in her own way that speech has the power to make people angry and excited. And speech has the power to change minds. And that's one thing that Charlie Kirk did so well. And I can go on and talk more and more, but I think I'm going to sort of bring these things together. What was amazing about the environment at CUNY when I walked in, you saw there were only 4 or 5 people in the classroom. Why were there not more students there? If you watch the end of the video, the room's actually full. Eventually, the protesters leave. Where'd they go? They went to the dean's office to complain that the dean wasn't kicking me off campus. Can you imagine? These students are engaging in overt misconduct, and they walk to the dean's office to complain. But the room filled up with actual students. And the students told me that they were afraid to be seen with me. That they were afraid that their classmates would cancel them. That they'd be shunned. That they'd be subject to sanctions. That they'd lose friends. And they say they're afraid in classrooms to speak up and challenge whatever orthodoxy is being present. The problem with CUNY is not that it was protested. That's a symptom. That's not the disease. The disease is the idea of groupthink. They have an institution committed to just this very narrow worldview in which truth does not exist, that objectivity is a myth, and that if you deviate even 1 inch from that orthodoxy, your only solution is to be canceled. And I think of Charlie Kirk. Again, I never met him. I don't know, maybe you have. I've never met him in person. But he gave his life. He didn't know it. He probably never saw the bullet coming. But he gave his life for the cause of speech and reason. And you know what? When we all go forward in our sort of missions in the world, we all have this choice of whether we will stand up and speak or we'll just be quiet. Now, I get it. You're all undergraduate students. I'm an academic. I have tenure. By the way, my tenure vote happened the day before this happened. Completely coincidental. I mean, I didn't care. I've done it anyway. It wouldn't have mattered. I was, so I was controversial from day one. But I have academic tenure. They can't fire me. Let them try. I mean, they can try, but it's not going to work. So I'm able to do this without fear of losing my job. Now, a lot of you are just starting out, and you might be fearful that things that you say might be used against you for employment, or you might lose friends. And it's not trivial. You'll have to get jobs. You'll have to find careers and find a path for yourself. But as you choose those paths, you can make a choice. Can you put yourself in a position where you're able to pursue things you believe in, or those where you have to ignore what you believe in? It's a choice we all make, right? Money's great, but it's not everything. I'm a law professor, man. We don't make money. It's not why I'm here, right? Lawyers make a lot more money than law professors. But I chose this path because it's something I believe in profoundly. And I believe that we can all make a difference. I can use my writings and my speakings and other things I do to change the world. And as you all go out and accomplish wonderful things with this wonderful education, think of how you can use this and to not be silenced by these idiots at CUNY who call me a white supremacist, fascist, Nazi bastard, whatever else they called me, right? So it kind of was a coda. After this happened, eventually they left the room to complain. I later sent a Freedom of Information Act request to the school, because of course I did. And they had all these frantic emails like, what are we going to do about this? What are we going to do? And they hired what was this crisis management firm to like deal with this. Because I was on Tucker Carlson that night. I went on Fox News, and like, this is ridiculous. They're playing this video online, got a lot of views. I later saw the dean of the CUNY Law School at an event, and she pretended not to know me. She was like, nice to meet you, and she ran away. Because she knew what she did was wrong. Not a single member of the faculty ever reached out to me because they knew what they did was wrong. I like to think that at least one or two of those students actually had an impact. There was one student in particular who I was talking to, and he actually came afterwards to me, and I'm going to paraphrase, said, you're not as bad as I thought you were, right? I assumed that you were this fascist incarnation of a Nazi, and I still think your views are awful, but you're a nice guy. Look at that. When you allow speech to happen, persuasion happens, even in a hostile environment. And you know what? For all the hell I went through that day, it was worth it. If I changed one mind, that was worth it. Thank you all for your attention. I welcome your questions. Oh yeah, we got a mic here. You want to do this one?
Sure. Yeah, I'll moderate questions here, and anyone wants to ask something? We have about 20, 30 minutes. Yes, sir.
Yeah, so this happened 7 years ago, right?
Yeah, that's crazy, right?
And, I don't think, if I go back 7 years, it doesn't seem like the environment is anywhere near as divisive
Yeah.
as it is today.
Yeah.
So, this really surprises me to know that it was this long ago, and, it's kind of like where are we going to be in another 7 years? We're so extremely polarized, right now.
Yeah, no, it's a fair question. Again, this happened 7 years ago. My hair was much shorter, like the tree that grow rings every year, so my rings get longer. I'll try to joke be done next time. I work on material. I haven't used one before. So to answer your question, this was in April of 2018. So this was about a year into Trump's first administration, and I thought things were pretty wild then, right? Nothing compared to what's happening today. I think we saw, especially after October 7th, this virulent anti-Semitism, no word for it, this virulent anti-Semitism spread through our campuses, not here, not at St. Thomas, you guys are good, right? And people were protesting, and you actually had Jewish students who were fearful to leave their homes and who were under police escort to walk to synagogue. Students were occupying libraries and kicking out people and smashing windows. They were, at UCLA, remarkably, they had basically a no Zionist section of campus, where if you were a Zionist, you couldn't pass through, so you couldn't even walk to the library. And these things happened. We see now in the last 7 months or so since Trump came to office, 8 months, actions taken at these universities where they're now losing significant federal funding for their inability to do this. But why did these things happen on campus, right? It wasn't out of nowhere. These were students being taught ideas for years that speech is violence, that speech that makes you feel bad should be shut down. And when you learn that from grade school up, and then you get to law school like this, it's not surprising, right? Again, this is just symptoms. This is not the cause, the root of the disease. The disease comes much earlier from what students are learning. I often will speak to high school students, and I tell them to repeat after me. There is no such thing as hate speech. That's not a thing in our country. The First Amendment protects hate speech. I have them repeat it because I just pray that one day, if they're in a college classroom, professor says, that is hate speech. Professor Blackman said there's no such thing, and let them flip out. Let them be challenged. Let them have that bravery, the courage to challenge orthodoxy. Because I know who is a high school student today, will be a college student in 4 years, be a law student in 7 years, remember the bar in 8 or 9 years, and will be sitting at a bench in 20 years. So your question is, where are these people 7 years later? I keep joking the Mamdani campaign, being a little facetious, but what the hell are they doing with what they learned? What did they learn in law school? What are they doing with their lives? Now, most lawyers don't even do common law. They just, they do corporate law, they do things that are sort of business-oriented. But if the way they react to these issues. Now, the harder question is, should the bar take notice of this? Right? Texas had an issue with this about a year or two ago. Should people behave like this not be able to sit for the bar exam? That's actually a good First Amendment question.
Josh, I have a
Please.
question. So the law seems to be very pro-free speech. You just mentioned, hate speech is not prohibited. Does it seem like the cases these days are still very pro-free speech?
What's interesting is that for a period of about 10 years, I'd say from about 2008 till 2000, until about Trump. So basically from 2007 or 8, 2015, 16, about 8 or 9 years, the Supreme Court had its most pro-free speech period maybe ever. You had a series of decisions, 9-0, 8-1, 7-2, where the court found that various speech laws were unconstitutional. And you have Justice Scalia and Justice Ginsburg agreeing on free speech. Kind of like a Pax Free Speech Anna, right? This period of this peace. But then you had Justice Alito, who had some dissents in Snyder against Phelps and U.S. v. Stevens and a few other cases, and he had a concurrence in Brown v. EMA, challenging orthodoxy. And where things seem to be going is that the conservatives were actually going to be the ones to protect free speech. And the liberals were not, because liberals were opposed to hateful speech. But I think things changed during Trump. I think a lot of it happened during COVID in particular. And it's something that I've even given some reflection upon. What is the biggest threat to free speech today? It's not the US government. It's TikTok, it's Twitter, it's Facebook, right? We saw this during the COVID, right? Where you had these social media companies shutting down accounts if anyone even questioned whether COVID came from a laboratory in China. And if you even had even the slightest hesitancy or curiosity about a vaccine, you'd be deactivated, you'd be deplatformed. That was one of the most egregious violations of free speech ever. Wait a minute, Josh, that's not free speech, that's corporations. Yeah, and where do we speak? right? There are not many soapboxes left, right? We speak, especially, we couldn't even leave our houses. We're stuck inside. And then we found something else. The Biden administration was basically leaning on social media companies to shut down speech. It's called jawboning, right? They say, hey, someone put up this tweet, you should do something about it. There's no order, there's no law, but they should do about it. So I think a lot of conservatives came to think that, well, maybe having this robust free speech is not so great when you have these corporations shutting things down. So, Florida and Texas enacted laws restricting social media. Florida and Texas have restricted access to pornography online. So maybe it's a good idea to not having kids watching this awful material. And so I think what we're actually seeing is people on the right are sort of moving away from this free speech, ideal with Alito and Thomas at the lead. I don't know. Barrett ducked the issue in the Joe Bonin case. She found no standing. One of the worst decisions I've ever read on standing. Terrible decision. But I don't know what happens. I mean, even on January 6th, I think Trump's speech at Lips was protected speech. It was 2 miles from the Capitol. I think it was protected speech. But a lot of judges said no, that he can be punished for incitement. So I don't know where free speech case law goes. I think there are a number of cases this year about speech, but the left-right alignment of this isn't quite settled. Things are moving around a lot.
That seems right. And so the law itself seems very pro-free speech, but the culture, it just seems like it's less and less, like you were saying,
Mhm.
to be, and including the media companies. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Franklin. So we're going to have Francis Beckman coming out next week, and he's going to be talking to us about religious freedom.
Good.
So I was just curious, since you've written on religious freedom, and you're also a constitutional scholar, clearly, I took the joke, Professor Wolf, quite funny at the beginning. What do you see as the relationship, both within the law, and then if you'd be willing, maybe even philosophically speaking, what do you think is the relationship between freedom of speech and then religious freedom?
It's a good question. So very often we think of free speech and free religion, they overlap, right? So I'll give you the classic case. Jehovah's Witness cannot salute. To them, to salute a flag is if they're saluting another God. So if you're a Jehovah's Witness student in elementary school who does not want to say the Pledge of Allegiance, is that a free speech case or a free religion case? Or both? A little bit of country, a little bit of rock and roll, right? How do you characterize that? Let's say you're a baker and you bake cakes for weddings. And you like making wedding cakes, so that's a reflection of your belief in the sanctity of marriage. And then you choose not to make a cake for a same-sex union. Is that speech? Or is that religion? So in almost case after case, almost any free speech case can be repackaged as free religion case and vice versa. And I think the court, curiously, almost favors religion because it's easier, right? The speech issue is sometimes harder. So in the flag salute case, West Virginia versus Barnett, it was a speech case, even though it's really religion. In Mastery's Cake Shop, though, they made it a religion case, not a speech case. So the court varies how it approaches these issues, and there's not a great issue. If the government says, you can't wish someone a Merry Christmas, actual war on Christmas, right? Is that a speech regulation or religion regulation? Now, Justice Scalia had this one insight which never quite caught off, something called a hybrid right, where one right reinforces another, where you have, again, not saluting the flag, or maybe you're Amish and you don't want to send your kids to school. When different rights reinforce each other, they're even stronger. But that idea never quite gained any traction. But good question. And tell Frank Beckwith I said he's on this religious liberty thingy with me. So a highlight is I was on the stage with Dr. Phil. That's kind of cool. It was Ben Carson, Dr. Phil, and Josh Black on the stage. That's not 3 people you not usually think of in a room.
Wonderful. Yes, sir.
When you watch attacks on free speech today, is that not something that we have experienced in the 60s, in the 50s,
Mhm.
in the late 1990s? So is this not a pendulum swinging
Mhm.
too far while it was probably too far before? Will it not settle out again?
Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate the question. I think there's definitely a cyclical nature. There is a pendulum that swings back and forth. I think perhaps one difference between now and the 60s is who's actually at universities teaching. I think in the 60s, professors were by and large not quite as radical as your students. But I think today, many of the professors who were at school in the 60s are now academic professors, and they're the radicals leading the radicals. So I think perhaps one difference is who's actually in charge at the universities. I mean, we saw university presidents, man, they since lost their jobs, who were just coward. They were afraid of their students and faculty rebelling. And they said, okay, that's fine. You can just let the Jews go over there. Right? That's cool. Right? They can have their own zone. And they'll get over there, right? When you have, I can talk about DEI if you want to talk about DEI. I mean, a core tenet of DEI is that Jews are oppressors. That's a core tenet of it. That we don't quite fit in. Because you're kind of white, but not really, but you're an oppressor. That's what they explained to me. And so when you teach that to people, then you say, oh, we're not anti-Semitic. We're just opposed to Israel, whatever. Right? They rationalize. So I think there is a pendulum. I don't know the various Trump actions, how they'll endure. But I think the assassination of Charlie Kirk just 2 days ago, I think will probably lead to more crackdowns on campus protests. I think that will be a likely effect. Even campus security. I mean, people were asking me, Josh, don't get shot. I'm like, oh, I hope I don't get shot, right? I worry about my own safety. When I go to schools, there's no security for me. I'm just on my own. Please.
But isn't that what happened in the 60s the same way as it happened in the 50s, as it happened in the 20s? That the protests were there.
Hmm.
It may have been a little different, but the effect was the same.
Yeah.
People got killed, people got shot, people were afraid to speak, they were quiet, they were fixing to lose their jobs if they said something that wasn't appropriate or not with the times.
Mhm.
So is that the same what you have today?
I had a professor who quit academia, who was teaching in the 60s, Michael Ullman, and then he got back in academia much later because he didn't want to.
Yeah, I'll tell one story to answer your question. So the judge I clerked for him is Judge Danny Boggs, who was at Harvard in the 60s, so in the thick of this. They invited a prominent Dixiecrat politician to speak. I can't remember which one. It was a very prominent segregationist. Was it, I don't know, very well known. Maybe it was Wallace? Might have been Wallace. A very prominent segregationist. Harvard ensured that he was able to speak safely, right? They didn't kick him off campus. I think there are some campuses today where if you had a prominent segregationist or the equivalent come to campus, they would not even let him in the building. So I think just to the extent there's a difference, is there a willingness to even have these people speak? I don't mind protests. Protests are fine, but the idea we have to kick you out of campus. But thank you for the question, sir.
One interesting thing about the pendulums is that the court seems to be defending freedom of religion more now than it ever has
Oh, yes.
before.
Without question, this is the most pro-religious court ever. You know, the conservatives in the court don't grant everything on religion. They're sick solid, right? There's not much, well, Smith, but they're solid on most issues. There's a question over there, ma'am. Do you have a question?
Yes, I didn't know anything terrible for Hayden Cotton Law.
That's okay.
And my knowledge has not changed. I understood that if you wanted to make a statement on a privately held Facebook, Twitter, whatever, that wasn't considered free speech.
Correct.
Okay. Has that changed?
No.
Since 2000?
No. Well, well.
Is your case law, what's happening now?
Right, so there's an argument that Facebook and Twitter and Instagram have occupied so much market power they're effectively common carriers.
Right.
So if you remember the old phone company, Ma Bell, right? Ma Bell can say, we will give only phones to Republicans, not Democrats. It was a common carrier. The Supreme Court has not addressed this. Again, Justice Barrett ran away with standing arguments. But Florida's actually argued that Facebook and Twitter have such power that they are common carriers. And if they are common carriers, they're required to carry all content. They can't censor. So in that case, the First Amendment would apply. It's not, that's something the courts has argued. The related issue is whether the government can basically lean or twist the arm of Facebook to shut down speech. At that point, there might be a violation of the First Amendment as well. Did I answer okay?
Okay, good.
Thank you.
They're sort of halfway, because if they were a totally private company, then they could be sued for, they would be liable for people saying things on there that would lead to harms.
Yeah.
So,
Actually, they can't be sued for it, can they?
Well, there's Section 230, right, which is basically an immunity statute passed in the mid-1990s, which says that If they're just hosting content that's not theirs, they have basically broad immunity under federal law. That is a law that may not be long for this world. I don't know. Okay, other question?
So I have a follow-up.
Please.
Are there obligations, sort of through YouTube, for YouTube to take down content?
Not today.
Like they're taking down some content and letting others stand. That's based on their own made-up policies.
Correct.
How did those policies come to be? Are they regulated by case law?
Self-regulation. Right, Facebook and Meta and YouTube have had different policies on their own accord. They say it's not compelled by law, but they have their own policies. Well, actually, to be more precise, Section 230 does require to have some sort of takedown policy, but it gives them pretty broad latitude. To use an example, since Elon Musk has taken over X, Twitter, they've become much more permissive. And they take down much less content, and that's a choice the company's made. They had all these, what they call the fact checkers, all these people, that's all gone. Facebook had something called the Oversight Board. They created like basically a mini Supreme Court to adjudicate what type of speech can be kept online. Yeah, McConnell's on it. And recently Facebook said, we're ignore you. We don't even care anymore. So I think Zuckerberg got with the program, no time it is. Like, okay, that's cool. But we're not going to be there. We're not going to be in the business of taking speech offline. Okay, so, yeah, sir, yeah, 1, 2, yeah.
You mentioned in your experience here in New York that there were actually at least one student that was in the audience or for your talk that was put down and essentially not allowed to hear what your presentation was going to be. I guess you could continue on, but let's say is there anything out there about free to listen?
Oh yeah, yeah. In fact, the Supreme Court has held that the right to speech has a corresponding right to listen. Right? These are connected rights. And when you heckle, right? If you guys start heckling me, it's not just violating my right to speech; it's violating your right to listen to me. In fact, there's an entire line of cases where people who want to hear a speaker speak can actually challenge federal laws about immigration. There was a case called was it Kleindens versus Mandel, where there was I think it was Belgian. He was a socialist who wanted to speak in the United States, and Nixon denied him a visa. And they said, well, we want to hear him speak. And they're actually able to get a claim based on their right to listen to him. I think it's completely wrong, but that was the case.
Does that change if there has been a charge for them to attend the event?
Oh, they have to pay to get in?
Yes.
Well, look, you can restrict access, which I would not favor. In other words, I think if they are students at this school, they should be allowed to attend my event. They just can't stand 6 inches over my shoulder. If they just sit in the back of the room and hold up their signs quietly, no objection. I'd be fine with that. That's their right. If they want to make me feel uncomfortable, what they can't do is block me. They can't stand in front of me. They can't shout over me. They can't block my PowerPoint, right? They can't do things to block the listener from hearing my speech. Thank you. And there, somewhere back. Yeah.
Yeah, I just had a quick question. So you said this was about 7 years ago, I think?
Yeah.
And you said it was a couple months after the Trump administration took office.
About a year, yeah.
Okay. So I was just wondering if you had any events before that.
Any what?
Any of like your events where you went to go speak before that, and like the gentleman in front of me said, the environment has gotten a lot more hostile since then. So I was wondering if you think that was like, I guess, related to the Trump administration taking office, and if you think that amplified it, and it's just been getting worse since then with like whichever president has taken office, or if you think it was just completely unrelated, or maybe, I guess, more so connected to social media and how it's been growing so much.
Very good question. I think in the first year of Trump, people lost their minds. I mean, this was 7 years ago. If you're in college, maybe what, 12, 13 years old when that happened, right?
Could you repeat the question, please?
Oh, the question was, this happened 7 years ago. Was this because of Trump or some of the other things? I think the short answer is people lost their minds first year of Trump. I mean, Chris was there. I remember it. People didn't know what to expect. By now, people kind of know what to expect. It's like, okay, there's another crazy social media post. Just it's Tuesday, right? But to answer your question sort of more directly, this was a place that never had conservatives inside. I felt like I was an alien traveling to a foreign nation where they say, oh, look at that, like they're pointing at me. All they probably ever seen was like, an MSNBC clip of Fox News, right? That's probably the most, they've never probably seen a Republican in their life, right? You want to talk about insulation? Like, that's AOC's district, by the way, that law school is. AOC, that's her district, right? They don't know, I mean, and I grew up in New York City, Staten Island, in fairness, which is kind of this suburb, but they don't know what conservatives look like. They think that we're awful, that we're evil people, that we We're there to try and put them in a camp somewhere. And I show up, I'm like, wow, this guy's actually kind of nice. He's funny, right? And they were shocked. It was like this cognitive dissonance between what they thought I was going to be, what I actually was. And that's why they left, right? The reason why they left was I killed them with kindness. I didn't yell at them. I didn't scream at them. I said, let's talk, let's reason, like what Charlie says. Let's have a debate. And they couldn't do that. They had to leave the room. They wanted me to leave, but I used words and they left. By the way, I had no script. You know, you can watch the video now and say, oh, well, everything came out okay. I didn't know this. In fact, the dean, I swear to you, sent a memo after he said, well, Professor Blackman was able to speak for 45 minutes, so it was no problem. I was able to speak because I was talented enough to figure out how to navigate these shoals, how to go through the different cliffs, right? It was up to them. I'd be out there in 3 seconds. It was my exit strategy. How was I going to get out of the room?
The point about, you know, that you guys were very young when Trump came to office, and, you know, certain things happen in our formative years, and they definitely really stick with us. I mean, Josh, I read your post today about 9/11, and I was in high school when that happened too, and just profoundly affected.
What year did you graduate high school?
05.
Okay, so you're a couple years behind me, yeah. Yeah, I was a high school senior in 2001 in New York City. And if you go to the Vol Conspiracy, you can see a post. I have the same post every year. And for me, my life changed that day. I mean, I was in Staten Island, so I wasn't in Manhattan. My dad actually worked across the street from the towers. He wasn't there that day. He had a different office, thankfully. And so I didn't have any direct relatives who were affected by it. But Staten Island had a very high concentration of blue-collar workers, fire, EMT, police. And a significant number of the people went to the towers to rescue people were from Staten Island. And I had, one girl in my class, her name was Ashley. I'll never forget it. We heard these rumors that a plane crashed into the Trade Center. And I had a cell phone. This was by 2001. No one had a phone. I had a phone. I was cool, right? I was a nerd. And I gave her my phone, and she tried to call her dad, and of course it didn't go through because his office had been blown up. He was on the top floors at Cantor Fitzgerald. I had other classmates whose fathers were firefighters who were killed. And you would drive up and down the streets of Staten Island, and you see all these candles in the window, these women waiting for the husbands to come home, and they would never come home. Because you don't remember this, but a lot of the bodies were not identified for months, and some even years. They would find scraps of DNA to even identify people. And I just had this epiphany. It's maybe even 9/11 or the next day, like, there are people who want to destroy us. And I never thought about that before. You can think of Pearl Harbor, right? That wasn't in my lifetime. I didn't know Pearl Harbor. And Pearl Harbor happened in the Pacific somewhere. It didn't happen in downtown Manhattan. So I changed, and I started being much more political. I went to the hard right after this, but I hadn't really thought about 9/11 before. I just hadn't thought about these issues. And so, you have formative events in your lifetime. We had 9/11. I think we had Trump's first term. We had the COVID. We had January 6th. Trump's second term, whatever happens tomorrow, right? But these sort of events sort of shape you. You can remember like an inflection point of how things changed. And you're all, I guess you're 20 years old. You were born around after 9/11. I guess you weren't even alive then, were you? No. No living memory. No, it's true, and I know that.
Yes, the free speech, right to publish, with the AI coming on, and the right to publish, what about somebody publishing, and I've had AI falsely generated stories presented to me that look real.
Yeah.
What is the nature of that going forward?
Well, look, AI, by the way, I don't use AI. I refuse to use it. And I'll tell you why I don't use it. I don't want to become dependent upon it. I've seen it. It can be addicting. My dad loves AI. He uses it for everything. He's like, any question as he asks ChatGPT, he thinks it's like genius. So I don't use it. But the free speech issue is actually very tricky. Google has argued for years that their algorithms, or at least the output from the algorithms, protected speech. Right? In fact, one of the arguments that my friend asked here is, wouldn't a ban on social media posts be a First Amendment violation? Well, it's obvious if I'm typing a post that's something I generated. What if it's Google search results, right? You just go to Google, you type in a search result, it spits out this content. Is that speech? So years ago, back in 2012 or 13, I published a paper And I argue that the question is how much human intervention is present, right? And I actually had a hypothesis, which didn't exist at the time. I said, imagine you have a robot, right? And you tell it, I want you to paint me a painting the style of Van Gogh. And it picks up the paintbrush and moves the brushes around, right? And then you have another robot that says, look at my past artwork and decide what I want to have, and it paints the painting. Versus saying, paint, and there's no human intervention. And I said, when there's no human intervention, there should be a lesser protection of free speech. So I'm not sure the output of an algorithm where there's no, complete machine learning, no human intervention is protected speech. I'm not sure why it would be. The funner question is defamation, right? Just out of curiosity, I Googled on Wednesday, Josh Black and Charlie Kirk, because I wanted to see it. I thought I was on TV with them once, I wasn't sure. And know what it spits out? I swear to you, this is true. Oh, let me pull this up. This is actually true. Where is it?
No, another.
There was basically fake AI. It said, law professor Josh Blackman commented on the shooting of Charlie Kirk. And they basically say that I made a false statement about Charlie Kirk's assassination. Completely false. Almost defamatory, in fact, because I said nothing about it at all. But this is what Google Gemini had spit out. So is that libel? Is that defamation? I mean, maybe I'm a public figure, but is there any free speech concerned?
I think you bring up another aspect to free speech, the principle, even beyond the First Amendment protections. Another way that free speech is protected is through copyright and through Article 1, Section 8, where it says that Congress can make laws to protect your property and ideas and for a certain number of years. And that's definitely going to be, I think, affected by AI. Professor Botts, our AI expert at University of St. Thomas.
No, there are no experts. There are.
Yes, in the back. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, yeah, go ahead. Yes.
Just real quick question about where's the line with fair use? Because when many of the tech companies, as their algorithms, scoop up data from various databases, they go into libraries, publish authors, people with copyright protected material, all that's being taken in by these algorithms. And there have been some lawsuits against that practice, arguing that it's done without attribution and without compensation. The tech companies argue fair use. What do you come up with?
I wish I was an IP scholar, but I'm not. I'm sorry. I answer all these questions about everything else. I just don't know fair use. I'm really sorry. What do you think?
I don't think it is fair use. Because they monetize the output. If they didn't monetize the output, for instance, OpenAI first ChatGPT and everything was free. It was freeware, so you could use it, and they were, again, bringing in, they were taking copyright material, and they were, it was aggregated and then returned to you. But it was done without monetization and compensation either to the artist or to the company. Now that OpenAI is moving to a paid subscription, they're going to soon have an IPO. That content that they built their business model is now going to be monetized. I think in that instance, there should be the question of fair use is moot. Now, this is they're taking copyright protected material. They haven't compensated the artist or the writers or anyone else for that, and now they're monetizing that. So I think they've crossed the line when they monetize that.
There was just a settlement this week between Anthropic and various content creators for, I think, $1.5 billion. What's interesting is the judge basically rejected the settlement, saying it's not enough. He says trial lawyers often get more than the people, so he says whatever they stole, this is not nearly enough. I think there's a question in the back somewhere.
I wake up every morning and I'm trying to correlate everything else in reality. Reality-wise, good at collecting because we get so many different types of people and so many different types of realizations of goals and ambitions and all types of
with the mass school shootings that are going on, it hurts the entire country.
Mhm.
You know, as a Christian, it hurts just to see people die, innocent people die.
Mhm.
That's the overall stronger remorse frame. But what would you say to those who, you know, you want to say something but you can't say something because you're afraid to overstep the boundary?
It's
You
a,
know,
it's a
do
good,
you
it's a
kind
good,
of like with that?
it's a good question. I get this all the time. And what were we, 19, 20 years old? 20, yeah. I was 20 once. I'll get a little bit meta, and the professor of religion can maybe correct me. I think we're all here for a reason. We have a limited time on this planet, right? We only have so many breaths, so many words we can ever say. And every word and breath counts. And when you see something that you think should be said and you don't say it, that's an opportunity that's been wasted. And very often, if you're in a classroom or somewhere else and you think you're the only one who has the view, you're not. And when you say it, oh, I agree with him, and they reinforce it. It's the hardest to take the first step, to be the first one to speak. And actually, even harder than that, the second one, right? Very often, Justice Thomas, who I respect with so much admiration, writes solo dissents. No one joins him. No one even wants to be with him. They say, oh, retire Thomas. No, let the other ones retire. I have a list of who should retire, right? Being first is very hard, and sometimes being second is even harder. Because it's not your idea, but you're giving your imprimatur to someone else. So be the first one, and have someone who can be your second. And once you get to, you're off to the races, right? He said I'm like, you know, St. Jude, you know, this little statue over here.
Yes, Tony.
When I didn't finish speaking, yeah. So I was going to pause. So I mean, one of the reasons why I perhaps empathize with St. Jude, I was watching with my kids, and the St. Jude commercials make you want to give all their money to the kids in the hospital, right? It's like, Daddy, why can't we help the hospital? But the reason why I empathize with that is I am attracted naturally to issues that are not popular. If I see that there's lots of people speaking about something, I'm like, all right, someone else has got this. I don't have to do it. It's when the issue is no one else does it. So, like on January 6th of 2021, I think I was the first person, perhaps on planet Earth, to say publicly, free speech. I went to a news station in Austin. I said, well, I think, you know, there was not imminent and lawful incitement of violence. I think this is protected speech. I said this on January 6th. The building was still being cleared out when I said this. And I'm like, oh boy, this is going to be bad. I said it anyway, because I think it was right. And I still think I'm right. And people came up afterwards and they agreed with me. But try to be the first and get a second, and then you're off to the races. Yeah.
Well, I was kind of wondering, what can we really do to, in this kind of environment we have, especially like online, a lot of this stuff is kind of rooted in like social media and stuff like that. It feels kind of like there's kind of this propaganda arms race between like the two sides. Like kind of speaking on the groupthink thing, I think like it's less so like a matter of like each side trying to convince each other. It's more like each side trying to like have the loudest, most like kind of easily, like the most immediately digestible message that like somebody can just like repeat easily. And we have these kind of like waves of like, okay, this is the big thing that you either got this one extreme stance on or this one extreme stance on, and they kind of cycle through, and it's less about the issues themselves, and it's, I guess what's kind of disturbing to me is just kind of like the speed at which people adopt and drop all of these different like kind of radical views. Say like, how do we kind of combat that kind of thing? How do we like bring people kind of down to earth a little bit more and like
I have,
thinking about
yeah,
things?
it's a good question. I'm going to Charlie, right? Go to his YouTube channel. He has like 6 million, now it's too much probably. He has millions of subscribers. He would go to these hostile campuses and have a booth. Let's say, like, Nathan, was it?
Disagree with me.
Disagree with me, yeah. And he would go there, and he would have these people go up who expressly disagree with him on transgender, on guns, on abortion, on affirmative action, whatever the issue is. And he would debate it. He would let them speak, and he would go right back at them. And you can see how uncomfortable they were because they never had their views challenged. So, be like Charlie, right? Je suis Charlie, as they say, right? Oh, we don't say that anymore. They don't remember that one, right? Be like Charlie. Have a reason to debate. Look, when I go to campuses, I don't yell at people. I don't scream at them. I have students. My students don't agree with me. I had one teaching evaluation. They said, his views are important, but he's a good professor. Put that on my tombstone, right? Even though they disagree with me, they think they like how I teach. Be like Charlie. Be reasoned. Be calm. Don't yell at people. You'll find, I mean, you're all just starting out, but you're rewarded for doing good things. It actually does happen. Like, I am up here because I've done things in the past that Chris has liked. You don't start up here, you build up to this. I gave a speech at the Texas Review of Law and Politics a few years ago, and my mission was, I'm up here now, how can you all get up here? What can you all do to become a winner of a bobblehead? And maybe some of them took advice. But the first thing is courage. You have to be able to speak. If you're gonna be meek and you're not gonna say anything controversial, you're gonna be back there. You'll be in the backbenchers.
Probably time for one more question. Professor Joseph, did you have a question?
Sure, yeah. Maybe this is a follow-up to your meta comments, but what relationship do you see between free speech and religion itself? You mentioned the overlap with religious freedom, but I mean, do you see free speech as something that's has arisen from the Judeo-Christian tradition?
I do.
Or is it sort of on a parallel track with that?
Yeah.
Independent of it?
Yeah, I mean, you can speak to the Catholic intellectual tradition. I can't. But I can speak to my own tradition. We argue. Jews argue about everything. We accept nothing. The old expression, 3 Jews, 4 opinions, right? It's true. I've studied Talmud, which is the old Babylonian tractate of the Jewish law, and people have been arguing for centuries, millennia, over how to parse text in the Old Testament, right? If you look at a page of the Talmud, there's comments on this side from this rabbi, and this one disagree. The entire base of religion is disagreement, and using that to find the truth. We don't have canon law. We don't have a pope telling us, okay, this is it, this is not, right? Our entire faith is about individual reasoning. I mean, that's why I'm so drawn to the law. That's why I love Jewish lawyers, indeed, right? The process of what we do is not dissimilar. How to distinguish, how to make our arguments, right? It's all about reasoning. And you need to be free speech. If you have to say, Rabbi, I disagree, off with his head. No, that's not going to work, right? You have to be able to have that discussion.
The Catholic thing, we would say logos. We like that too. And we want to say thank you, Josh, so much.
Thank you so much, Chris.
Today.
Thank you all. Thank you all.